Hello, wonderful people. This is Tom Check with Choice Coaching, where we help you unlock your inner awesomeness. And today I am talking a little bit about journaling. This is something that some clients and some friends and some strangers have asked me about recently, and so I figured I'd make a video about it. I definitely love the idea of journaling in some fashion for anybody who's engaged in personal development. I think it's really an important tool that allows us to interact with ourselves in a very different way. But most of us have some preconceived ideas about what journaling is. For many of us, the idea of a journal is very similar to the idea of a diary, right? A cataloging of events and experiences that we write down so that sometime in the future we or our loved ones can read about the adventures of our life, right? And look back oh so fondly or not so fondly on those times, right? Sound familiar? That is useful to some degree for some people, but it's not very useful for personal change. It's not very useful to just catalog events, and it becomes really tiresome, and most of us don't do it for very long if that's the way that we approach journaling. We'll do it for a month, maybe, and then we'll say, you know what, I'm writing about what I had for lunch for the sixth time this week, and I just don't think I'm ever going to care about this tuna sandwich in my life. Yeah, you're right on track. So what are some other options as far as how to journal in a meaningful way that helps you create traction to change yourself and your life? The first way, and the way that I personally approach journaling, is to ask myself questions that don't have obvious answers. And the first line on any journal entry for me is a really hard question. And then I spend the next couple pages trying to answer it. And really what that looks like is just exploring what comes up in my head what's my knee-jerk reaction? And then why do I think I had that knee-jerk reaction? And if I spend a little bit more time there, what else comes up for me? What other reactions do I have? And it's this way to notice a lot of what's going on inside of myself, right? Which allows me to kind of accept where I am while doing my investigation. So it really does hit three of those four tools that I reference a lot, notice, accept, investigate, and let go. So that's one way to journal. That's the way that I journal, and that's the way that I invite a lot of my clients to journal is I give them a prompt, and I tell them that there are no right or wrong answers. This isn't for anybody else, and it shouldn't be the type of thing you need to hold on to. You can burn the pages you write. That should be okay, because this isn't for you to remember tomorrow. This is for you to remember right now what's going on in your head, to get it out of here and onto the page. So that being said, there are certainly other ways to journal, often really functional ways. And if you're not a long form writer, if writing is hard for you, sometimes it's really valuable to have the same prompts that you answer day in and day out. This does give you kind of a barometer to pay attention to what's going on in your life. And so you can do stuff like ask yourself, what are you grateful for today? Right? Gratitude journaling. Totally functional. For me, it gets a little boring after a while, but that's because, again, I tend to be really thankful for the same things day in and day out. So it's a little challenging for me after a couple months to feel like it's useful. But for some people, they're able to consistently explore new gratitudes in their life, and that's really functional. Another type of repetitive journaling that can be really useful is what went well today in whatever I'm working on personally, my personal change journey. What went well? What maybe didn't I do as well as I could have? And what did I learn because of that not so good thing that I exhibited, right? This is a really interesting way to go through this process, because then you've got a constant feedback loop, which is a really important part of change, is that reflection and that feedback to yourself that helps you really anchor in the work that you're doing. So that's another really great way to journal. Last and certainly not least is just an exploration of what am I feeling? Especially early on in our journey, we're not used to being in touch with all the thoughts and all the feelings and emotions and all the behaviors. And so it can be really valuable just to write down, what did I feel today? What behaviors did I exhibit? What thought processes kept coming up? Generally, this isn't going to last you all that long, but it is a great tool to get used to having that explorative dialogue with yourself. So it can be a great tool as far as journaling goes. The last thing I always like to tell people about journaling is that it doesn't have to be pen and paper. For many of us, that is the most effective way because it slows us down. That slowing down, my brain thinks super fast. I type pretty fast, but I write kind of slow, especially if I want to be able to read it the next day. So when I write, I have to slow down. And that can be really helpful because it takes me out of that frenetic, reactionary mindset that I'm often in, and I'm guessing you're often in, just because of the society that we live in. We rarely have time to slow down. And so when we journal written words, often it helps us do that. That being said, you can totally do this digitally if that's useful to you. Maybe even more importantly, you can do this auditorily. You can open up the voice recorder on your phone. Every phone has one, and if not, there's a million free apps out there that do this, where it just records and you can just talk. So much of the value that people get out of having a helper or an accountability buddy or a coach honestly comes from verbal processing. And if you can get into the habit of verbally processing with yourself, just with that recorder, that can serve a lot of the same functions. It's not going to obviously open a lot of new doors, but it will help you explore what is going on in your life, in yourself, really effectively without having to have that other person there. So if you drive a lot, instead of popping on that podcast, maybe talk for half hour, 45 minutes about what's going on in your life. And just watch what happens. You'll see where you're skirting the truth, where you're trying to make it sound better. Call yourself out on it. Be honest. Be authentic. This doesn't work if we lie to ourselves, whether it's written word or whether it's a voice recorder or whether it's any other type of thing. If you're working with a coach, but you're lying to yourself, you're still not going to get the change you want. And so journaling, regardless of format, regardless of medium, is a means for you to explore with authentic curiosity your own experience. Once you explore it, you can accept it. Once you accept it, you can figure out why it is the way it is. And once you do all of this, you've got enough space to start letting go of the stuff that doesn't serve you so that you can confidently step into your more powerful skill sets and create the life that you most deserve to live. So that's what I've got for you today. I'd end with an invitation. Journal. Write it down. Even if it's 3 sentences today. It takes practice. It's not natural for so many of us, and that's okay. Ask a hard question. Try and answer it. See what you come up with. If it's a sentence or it's 12 pages, doesn't matter. There's no wrong answers when we journal. As long as we're being honest, it's functional, it's useful, and it helps you grow. If you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate to comment below. Hit me up by email at tom@choicecoaching.us. And until next time, stay awesome, and I'll see you soon.